Rena, can you hear me? Looks like you're trying to connect to audio, so I didn't know if you could hear me or not. Okie dokie. I'm just gonna get started. Rena, you're currently the only person in the room, and also there's no one in the class right now, which is totally fine. We're just gonna teach the class and we're gonna get started. And if people join, then we'll work out. Let me share my screen again and make sure to get what I needed in the chat. Okay, cool. So, hello. Welcome to Ignite. This is session 10, Keep Every Lead. This is the first session for the third segment of Ignite. I need to make sure I look over here too. For the sake of this recording, I'm going to introduce myself as my name is Coryn Diebel. I am the Agent Services Coordinator here for Keller Williams Mid-Willamette Realty. I'm excited to teach this class. I'm excited to talk about the importance of really keeping every lead, making sure that you're intentionally following up and making sure that you're intentional with the conversations that you have with leads that hopefully will become contacts and hopefully you will be able to do business with. So in the second segment of Ignite, we kind of covered what it looks like to be the real estate expert of choice by building your value proposition. We also covered generating leads through prospecting and marketing. That was more of my focus in the class that I taught three sessions ago. I can't remember. And then today we're going to focus on lead follow-up that can make or break your business. Generating a lead can almost take no time at all. However, the important aspect is, like this title of this session time is called, keeping those leads are really, really going to decide whether your business drives forward or it stalls out. I know some agents that do this well, they keep moving along and puttering along, so to speak, and getting those deals underneath their business. And I also know of agents that tend to go up and down, because learning how to keep every lead the way that works for you in your business and the conversations that you have with your potential clients can, like I said, really make or break your business. So this next segment of Ignite, we are going to come on on. Are you Andy? I thought you were another person. We have one person on Zoom, so I'm still teaching this class. So you can come on over if you'd like.
Hey, July.
Yeah, you did. Okay. So this next segment of Ignite, we're going to really focus on turning possible business into probable business, and then that probable business into profitable business. So with that being said, we're gonna start this class. And Rena, if you have any questions, feel free to just pop on, and we'll probably do a little back and forth because I have some questions on here and I definitely want to know your thoughts. So since it's just you and I, we're just gonna hang out for the next 2 hours. But okay, so this is the third segment. Like I said, we have the lead follow-up, which keep every lead is our current session. We're going to then focus on follow-up with leads, strengthen relationships, qualify potential buyers and sellers. The lead follow-up process is essential to converting leads to business. From the moment you have captured that lead to when you put it into your database. And we talked about the 4 laws of your database and the importance of understanding what that looks like. You can feed it, but if you're not nurturing it, you're not being intentional with it, you're not going to get anywhere. So the agenda for today, we're going to kind of touch on what is lead follow-up, how to lead follow-up. And can you get that for me? Somebody's up front.
Yeah.
Thanks. Post lead follow-up, recap and ahas, and then the data success system that typically happens post class. Okay, so by the end of today, you will be able to describe the benefits of establishing a system of lead follow-up. And we're gonna be intentional with that. Apply the 19 to connect touch campaign with leads. Explain the importance of cementing the relationship with those leads. So those are your three points that we're gonna hit on today. And we're gonna make sure that everybody has that understanding and can apply that to their business afterwards. So, Rena, since we're the only one on here, can you tell me how we define a lead? If you're in the spot to be able to talk, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I can talk.
Okay.
I guess, I mean, I don't know how they define it, but it's anybody that kind of reaches out for possible information about real estate.
Yeah.
I guess it
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be. Yeah. I mean, technically, yeah, it should be real estate. It's not a client until you've actually met with them and made a contact, but
100%. In the teaching guide, they're basically a little bit more specific, but you're pretty spot on. It says a lead is a person who has shown interest in the service you provide, and you have their contact information, although they are yet to engage in a two-way conversation. A little bit more specific, but essentially the gist of what you said. The goal with lead follow-up is to follow up with that lead with the goal of entering that two-way conversation. So now the question is, does lead follow-up only apply to a lead?
well, if they're a client, I would call it client follow-up, but
Tomato, every person in your database, whether a lead or a contact, will require follow-up at some point, so that they, when they do have a real estate need, they immediately can think of you. And that's kind of the point of this class, is how can we, as agents, be top of mind with the conversations that we're having with people in our database, with the people that we're just meeting at the grocery store, or even conversations with our sphere of influence. So with that being said, are the people you've put in your database only in your real estate business? I'm sorry. Are the people you've put in your database only in your real estate database? Are you the only real estate agent they know? Probably not. How many like other real estate databases are there? How do you ensure that when they think of real estate, they immediately think of you? And that's something to consider when you're creating or thinking about your follow-up plan, or implementing that in your database using Command or other CRMs that you're involved with, is how can I be top of mind? How can I create the perfect amount of touches that work for my business and automate for my business in order for them to go, oh my gosh, I really need to sell my sister's house because she needs to downsize, or I want my sister to sell her house. Who do I think of? Rena. Rena's been talking to me about this, and I just talked to her like a week ago. You know, it's one of those things where you really do have to be intentional with being top of mind. And I'm not saying talk to them every day, but how can we as real estate agents be effective and efficient with our lead follow-up and keeping those leads? So that's kind of the importance of really lead follow-up and the touches you make in your database. This graphic we talked about last session. So reviewing this, we see the nice trend of the likelihood of the move, and it's about 7 to 10 years. Everyone in your database lives on this trend line, wherever that looks like. At the top of the wave is typically when they purchase a home. The day after they buy a house, they move down the wave and continue until they begin to think about a new house. Over somebody's lifetime, they have the potential to buy 1, 2, 3, or more houses, depending on their desires or the needs. And the distance, like I said, between those purchases is on average anywhere between 7 to 10 years. I remember when I first took this class, I was kind of shocked thinking about that because for me, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but for me, like I grew up like you purchased a home and you lived in it. Like there was no moving unless you physically had to. We had to move because my parents divorced when I was in middle school. So when we purchased our house, like it was the intention that we're going to live in it until my parents grow old, kind of thing. That was the goal and the intention. So when I first saw this, I was like, oh, like this is common. That's crazy to me. But it kind of makes sense because we weren't anticipating a divorce. Or downsizing is a thing, or we have family members that move in, or there's so many different aspects to life that require a different size house or a different place to move or a different job relocation. All of that comes into play with this graphic. So if I gave you a lead close to the top of the wave, what would you perceive about the quality of that lead?
It would have a higher quality because they're getting ready to move faster, sooner.
Yes.
You would take
Yes.
less time to convert them into a client.
100%. Most likely you'd perceive that, like you said, as a high quality lead, that they're pretty ready to be moving again or purchase again. And then with the opposite, if I gave you a lead that literally just purchased a house, the quote unquote quality of that lead would definitely go down drastically because they just purchased, they're not thinking of selling. But even though you may perceive this as a bad lead, there are no bad leads. Every lead on this wave is somewhere. And with that being said, this lead may not be hot right now, yet they are future potential. So really like changing your mindset to think about like every single lead is a lead at some point. And how can we keep those leads in our database? How can we be intentional to follow up with them, even though they might be ready to buy yesterday or they're going to be ready to buy 2 years from now? So as a real estate agent, following up with those leads with frequency and intensity is key to remaining top of mind, in close emotional proximity, so that any lead that you approach at the top of the wave and that are ready to purchase, they think of you. This is where the importance and value of lead follow-up comes into play, like I've mentioned. Okay, so I definitely touched on this a very brief moment in the beginning, but possible business versus probable business versus profitable business. I could not say that 3 times fast. That's a lot of P's right there. But so think about the leads that enter into your database through lead generation as possible business. Lead follow-ups then help turn that possible business into probable business. And then with the end goal in mind, being profitable business. In the 2021 National Association of Realtors profile of home buyers and sellers, details the opportunity that lead follow-up can provide you. Weird sentence, hold up, let me rephrase that. The 2021 National Association of Realtors profile of home buyers and sellers details the opportunity that lead follow-up can provide to your business. They collected research that shows when selecting an agent to use, 73% of buyers only talked to one agent and 82% of sellers only contacted one agent. Since the data shows that most buyers and sellers only talk to one agent before deciding to do business with them, what will you do to ensure that you are the one agent for everyone in your database? Lead follow-up. Woo! That's definitely, I'm going to be saying that a lot in this session. Like lead follow-up. I'm going to like drill it into people. Okay, so if you are first or second in their mind, you probably won't get the business. And that is directly from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. If you haven't read it, I've started to read it. I want to read it. I want to finish reading it. So definitely a lot of good nuggets in there. And especially this one, because it's true, like you're not first or second, they're not even gonna think of you. So the concept of taking up space in people's minds through staying in close emotional proximity is called what we consider mind share. Emotional proximity is a result of engaging in the touches with your database. So this is a question for you, Rena. Thinking back to the day that you learned about lead generation, what touches are the strongest when it comes to relationship building? And touches meaning like emails, calls,
Face-to-face.
face-to-face, yeah, 100%. What about the weakest in your experience?
Well, I mean, emails have now become, I don't know what other thing goes below that, but emails I think would be the lowest.
Yeah, for sure. Meeting in person, face-to-face, and even a phone call are touches that will have the greatest impact on the relationships that you are building. Emails and texts tend to be weaker related to forming connections and bonds. That doesn't necessarily mean they can't, but as far as like the strength of that relationship, obviously is different, right? Because people were naturally geared towards wanting to be in community and relationship with each other. So the more that we're in front of them, the more relationship we can build over time. Again, not to say that emails and texts don't do well, the strength behind them is a little bit on the weaker side. While you will lead follow-up using a variety of those touches, it's important to keep in mind which ones will be most effective for you as you follow up. And you might find in your business, or you might find you like farm a certain area and you literally go door to door to door and you're getting nowhere. But man, like that area really responds well to my postcards or something like that. You know, every area is different. Obviously, statistically, the face-to-face tends to be, like we said, the way to go. However, like you never know. Like it just depends. But if we can get all of the touches that we can, we'll definitely at least hit our target in one of those touches. And that's something that when in the next couple slides, we'll talk about 19 to connect. Any ahas? Don't have anything, that's totally okay. You are still currently the only one in the room, Rena. So we're just hanging out today. I will
You don't have
go for
anybody,
it.
you don't have anybody at the office?
No, it's just
Oh,
you and
wow.
I. Yeah. And that's just how it goes sometimes.
Okay.
But go for it.
We don't, I mean, because I mean, I just come in to kind of listen. If you got something else to do, I'm good with that.
Well, I am recording this class so that when we do have other agents come in and we don't not teaching Ignite, at least they have this as a reference point. So I'm still gonna be teaching this. You 100% can listen and you 100% can pop in, but right now it's just you and I. So whatever works.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm reading Ninja Selling, and the one comment I wanted to make was that on an average, people know 12 realtors. So in Ninja Selling, it's called flow, to be in flow with your database so that you're top of mind. Because if you're not, even if somebody has used you before and have glowing recommendations for you, if you're not in front of that person when they go to make the move, they'll choose the other realtor.
100%. I like that flow, being in flow with your.
Yeah, me too. I like that term where it's like you have to be in flow with them. So their big thing is that people work with people that they know, like, and trust and are in flow with. That's their fourth. Like,
love that.
tidbit. Yeah.
Love that. That's cool.
Good book.
That's a good aha. Okay, how to lead follow-up. Oh, jump the gun. Here we go. Okay, so just like your intention to be strategic with your lead generation efforts, you should be strategic with your lead follow-up efforts. being thoughtful about how you will follow up. Hello, Paul, welcome to my classroom. Being thoughtful about how you will follow up and leveraging the highest value touches that yield the greatest results will help you convert those leads at a higher level. In your participant guide, there is a page, the fortune is in the follow-up mindshare page. I'm pretty sure it's this one. Yes. So whoever's listening and or listening to this later, definitely turn to this. Mindshare, I've kind of touched on this a little bit before, is gained through positioning yourself in front of your leads frequently with relevant and timely information. So like Rena talked about being in flow with your database. The goal is to open the door in a two-way conversation, in addition to getting them to think about you anytime they think about real estate. So through Ignite, you've been introduced to two different systems that engage your leads and contacts and help you gain mindshare. Those systems are, like this slide shows, 19 to connect and 36 to convert. So 19 to connect is specific to leads. How can we have those conversations to be able to have that two-way conversation, excuse me. And then when you have contacts in your database, how can we convert them into profitable business? So kind of that slide before, the possible, let's go back. Here we go. Possible business, right? Probable business, and then profitable business. So thinking about those types of conversations and ways to follow up. So 19 to connect is something that we're going to focus on today. But in general, these 19 to connect, 1 to cement, 36 to convert, these are the recommended systems for touch campaigns. When backing up, this was introduced to you during the lead generation segment. Like I said, we're going to talk about 19 to connect more specifically for this session. Okay. So to review, 19 to connect is made up of 4 touches, which tends to be a quarterly phone call, 12 touches, which tends to be a monthly email, newsletter, market report video. Andon Martin and I have been talking about his newsletter. I'm actually on his newsletter just to see and kind of be, in a sense, like a guinea pig. And if you need me to be a guinea pig for your campaign, so you can kind of see what this looks like before you send them out, 100% use me. I would definitely love to be a part of that so I can help kind of finagle and tweak some things if needed. 2 touches, promotional direct mail, such as the magnet, calendar, printed market report, all that stuff. And then 1 touch, an annual event, party, movie screening, get together, to a total of 19 touches each year. So the intent of these touches is to spread out over the calendar year, which equates to about 1 touch every 3 weeks, which I love that, because ultimately you can get this set up into command. You can create a smart plan around that. I'm pretty sure there is a smart plan in that is around this system. You don't really have to do anything but keep on top of your tasks and make sure that you are sending out a monthly email, making sure you're sending out direct mail, and it's once every 3 weeks. So the goal of this communication is to establish that relationship and open that two-way conversation. So also keep in mind that this is just a list and not a prescriptive list that you should complete it in this specific way. You can make it your own. And maybe your 12 touches is strictly a video, or maybe your quarterly phone calls involve like, maybe you want to shift like for the first half of the year, that's your phone calls. Like keeping that in mind, you can make it what would work for your business. The 4 phone calls specifically will have the greatest impact if you spread them out once a quarter. That is the suggestion. However, again, you can change it up, whatever works for you. The question is, okay, when do you think a lead should be added to your 19 to connect touch campaign? And it should be added immediately. Really, you want to make sure all of your leads get added to this campaign in order to create those relationships and create that two-way conversation so that they're a contact and then you have profitable potential business. So when you are communicating to a lead, remember that it's speed to lead. So the faster you're able to have these conversations, the more likely you're able to convert that lead into a contact. Speed to lead is kind of like how quickly you reach out after the lead has engaged with you is really what I mean specifically with that. Your speed to lead should be rapid. When I was on a real estate team before this position, we had a rule with all of our agents that if they get a lead within their task list or their database, they need to call that lead within 5 minutes. Like that was the hard fast rule, because statistically, the longer you wait to call or make contact with that person, more likely they're going to think of somebody else, or they're going to go figure it out on their own, or they're not even going to have a conversation with you, because when they clicked, find me an agent and no one called them in that 5 minute span, they're going to figure it out. And that's something that we wanted to implement in our team because of the necessity of speed to lead and making sure that those conversations happen. So, you have to be intentional that way, because the next time that they are, looking at like potential houses and stuff like that, and you're not the first real estate agent they talk to, they're going to go contact somebody else or have a conversation with somebody else. So, okay. Best practices for lead follow-up. You have a couple considerations for your lead follow-up program. What are my strengths when working with people? And I would definitely recommend taking this time to write this down, think about it, and then you can create a game plan around this. Another question to ask is, how can I adapt the touches of 19 to connect to represent me? That's a personal goal of mine. Is I really want to make sure when I have conversations with agents within Keller Williams is reminding them this is you. Like, let's make it about who you are and your passion, and how can we communicate you across that conversation in your campaign, in your smart plan. Because I don't want people to sound robotic. Another question is, what are some reasons I might have for contacting the lead? What are some touches to do before and after the phone call? I would even add a question of, what is some value I can add to the conversations that I have with this potential lead? What value can I bring to them? Like, what is my value proposition? How am I using conversations to let the person know I am in real estate, how to contact me, and how to refer business to me? When is it best for me and my business to time block for lead follow-up? How much time should I take to reach out to a lead? What will I do to hold myself accountable? And what do I need to do to make sure that this happens? Those are all solid questions, and I hope, and my goal is for you to be able to answer these accurately and articulately. That's hard. So that when you do build around this 19 to connect, you have these questions in mind, so that your follow-up is well-rounded. So, totally I touched on my notes. That couple things to consider to go along with the questions. Match the touch campaign with your strengths. Be prepared when you reach out with the reason you are calling or contacting the lead. For example, sending market information as the touch prior to the phone call. So sending them CMA, and then following up with a phone call is some best practices with that, because then you have something to go off of. Make sure that each time you communicate with the lead, they know you are in real estate. That's super important. And like I said, how to reach you and how to refer business to you. Know when you are going to complete your daily follow-up tasks. This should be time blocked for sure as a separate activity from your lead generation time. Typically, lead gen time is, I'm pretty sure, from like 8 to 11. That's, yeah, 8 to 11 tends to be the lead gen time. Anytime after that, whatever works for you and your schedule, devote an hour or two to making sure that there's follow-up. Set your personal standard for speed to lead. What time frame do you expect yourself to communicate with a lead? Like I said, in my example, we did a 5-minute turnaround. I know that might be a lot, but that's how we framed our team, so that we would be on top of those conversations and gain business, and we gained business from that. So designing your annual 19 to Connect touch plan. So the annual occurrence and the activity is something that needs to stay the same. But as far as the plan and what that looks like, you can change to fit your business and what works for you. Notice that there's a cost that can come into play when you build out your 19 to Connect plan. The calls, text, conversations, there's not really a cost to that. When you connect with every lead quarterly, offer something of value, ask for a referral, there's not any money that you have to put forward in order to do that, just your time. But with your 12 touches for emailing, newsletter, market report, video, thinking about, okay, well, maybe I could do a birthday card, or maybe I could do 5 birthday cards. That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. 1 birthday card. That would be, I mean, heck, people might have that conversation with you. Why did you send me 5 birthday cards? Okay. 4 market reports, 4 informative videos. I mean, you can change this up. 2 informative emails, maybe 1 neighborhood newsletter. Maybe all that you want to do is once a month neighborhood newsletter. There's your 12. Sorry, I'm still laughing at myself for saying 5 birthday cards. Okay, and then promotional direct mail, local sports team schedule, annual calendar. I mean, those are good options for you, but there's different ways you can go about it. And then 1 event, organized neighborhood park cleanup is 1. I know some agents, I've heard this recently, are doing what's it called? The yard sale, like a neighborhood yard sale, and been promoting that. That's a great way to be able to organize an event, and then it gets everybody involved. And you may not even have to have that conversation about real estate, but hey, at least you're like around people and they're selling their stuff, and you can talk about, hey, I'm also in real estate too, but let me help you organize a yard sale. You know, there's lots of options for you. One thing to know, the annual 19 to Connect touch plan is based on practices of top agents. Hello, welcome. What's going? Good. I had a doctor's appointment. Oh, no worries, girl. We are on, I don't know what page this is, 20? Oh, perfect. Okay, you're totally fine. We're specifically talking about this system, 19 to Connect. And this is specifically for lead follow-up and the importance of how can we be intentional to be top of mind, and what are ways we can implement 19 different touches in our business year round to be able to be the first person they think of in your real estate business. Okay. Because more than likely, if you as an agent is not the first or second person I'm thinking about, they're obviously not going to pick you. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of what this whole class is framed around. So we're kind of talking about what does it look like to design your annual 19 to connect touch points? I can go over that a little bit again. But basically, the calls and texts and conversations, you can build it out to 4 annual occurrences a year. So like a quarterly call plan. And the cost associated with that is none, because all you're doing is connecting with every lead in your database quarterly. Offer something of value, ask for a referral. That's a good way to approach that. There could be 12 occurrences of maybe emails, newsletter, market reports, videos. You can change this up depending on what fits your business. But one of those touches could be sending out a birthday card, maybe sending out market reports, informational videos, informational emails, maybe a neighborhood newsletter. But you can change this up. Maybe all you want to do is send 12 neighborhood newsletters. The 19 number is the amount of touches essentially in that year. And then 2 touches could be promotional direct mail, like local sports team schedule, annual calendar, stuff like that. Yeah. And then 1 touch could be an event. Organized neighborhood park cleanup is an example that they use. But I was just sharing with Rena on Zoom that I've heard of people doing like a neighborhood yard sale, like you helping everybody do yard sales. Yeah. Where you're not necessarily talking about you as a real estate agent, but you have your own booth that has your real estate stuff on it, and then you're helping organize that. So all different ways to have 19 different touches throughout your year for your database. But keeping in mind that there are some costs associated with some of these touches. Obviously calls and texts don't tend to cost much. So yeah, that's just things to consider with this plan. So here, the biggest thing with 19 to Connect follow-up plan is you really want to make an impact and focus on the value that you bring as a real estate agent. So your value proposition that you talked about in Ignite session 4, even that personal communication is super important. Rena mentioned that the strongest connections she has had with her leads is that face-to-face connection, and really making sure that you as an agent is shown through what you're trying to accomplish and it's not robotic. And then sharing statistics and data. That's something that a lot of people enjoy seeing. They may not understand it fully, but you being able to share that as an option in your conversations can help build those relationships and make you more trustworthy as a real estate agent because you know your knowledge. Okay, make sure I don't have anything more to say on that. Okay. When you have generated a lead and you've captured their information, you've put them into your database, this is the opportunity for you to actually have more of a two-way conversation with them. If you haven't heard back, you don't know much about that person, then your communication might be broader, focusing on a range of values, kind of like I talked about with this slide. But when you're having that two-way conversation, this is where you need to communicate your value that you created in your value proposition. You can, going along the line with this slide, you can use company or personal statistics if you want. We also know that people are more likely to respond when the message you're communicating feels personal and relative to them. As you engage with your leads, you can uncover how to serve them better and learn what they're interested in as a person and what they're looking for. So as you learn more about who they are, then you're able to communicate in a more detailed and value-based information, and relevant conversations tend to have more value and can be timely and lead to a greater opportunity for future conversion. One thing I want to note for you, Mackenzie, is really, go all the way back, the difference between possible business to probable to profitable. Possible business is the people that you really haven't contacted yet, but those are leads that you hopefully want to put into your database. So once you have that conversation with that lead, then they are in your database, then they become more probable. And then as you're building those relationships, and then as you have made contact with them and keeping that relationship, then profitable business will then come into place. Keeping that in mind when you are building your lead follow-up plan and using the 19 to connect plan as well. So, oh wow, that slide looks funky, but this is a good note. And one thing to do is look beyond the who when you contact a lead. The most basic way to start doing this is to craft your message based on the source the lead was generated from. For example, if the lead came through social media about first time, like a social media post that was centered around first time home buyers, sending them an investment property newsletter might not be the most relevant to your current situation. So really being intentional to think about, okay, where did this person come from? Is this an open house? Is this like the example gave, first time home buyer post that I made? And once that door is open for that two-way conversation, using those conversations to find their motivation for engaging with your business, what their time frame is, possibly other interests as well. And then you can group them using commands. You can group them with tags. So maybe like you have a first-time home buyer tag, and you can remove those tags too. But as you're developing similar interests, you can group them together so that if you're going to send out a newsletter, you send out specific to first-time home buyers with that specific tag. Okay. Once you know the source of that lead, you can narrow your range of value. Knowing the source, like I said, helps inform you on how you can pair value with communication that you have with this lead. A lead generated through a client referral will be communicated differently from a lead generated from just a phone call. So considering your sources that you already have in your database, if you aren't sure where to start, I would suggest starting with referrals, open houses, social media, since those activities you've learned about or engaged with since starting Ignite. And there's also a variety of different lead sources as well, maybe a call-in, community event, traditional marketing, your agent website, maybe a past client, maybe purchase leads, maybe a signed call-in or a blog or newsletter. Statements or questions to really think about, and I encourage you to implement in your business is, why are you thinking about buying or selling? Tell me more, and what will that do for you and or your family? And I actually just learned this yesterday. You really want to be intentional on the questions that you ask. The difference between open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. Like, for example, if I'm teaching a class and I ask, does anybody have anything else? That tends to be more of a closed-ended question, because you can really just say yes or no, and you're not going to get anywhere. But if you're asking who, what, when, where, why, and how kind of questions, like, what will that do for you and your business or your family? Or why are you thinking about buying or selling? Those types of questions tend to, in general, give you more of a response than just yes. It would be a little weird if that was the response to why are you thinking about buying or selling. So that would be an encouragement to think about as you're building out your follow-up plan, is asking those questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how, so that you develop, Rena mentioned this earlier, your like, know, and trust, because you're being intentional with those questions. You're not just being like checking off those boxes and stuff. Any ahas? So far, it's just you and Rena on. We're just hanging out today. Totally okay if you do not. I even did it. See, I just said any ahas. What are some ahas? There we go.
I think the 19 second life is going to be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. That would, especially for you and your business, I would definitely encourage you to just do that for your homework before the next session. Is like, what would that look like? Do you have the Ignite participant guide?
It's on the PDF.
Okay, perfect. That can be helpful for you to like reference to, because it explains a little bit more detail than just the slides, but I would definitely encourage you to print that out, because then it just helps give like a framework for how you want to follow up. So. Okay. So what do we do with post-lead follow-up? What does that look like? Once you follow up with the lead and you have permission to have that two-way conversation, what do you think happens with that person? We're hanging out. I'm waiting.
You said once you have
That two-way conversation, what do you think happens afterwards? It's kind of a really interesting question, because it feels like it's just a straight up answer, but
well, hopefully they leave the conversation like thinking more about either buying or selling or just like the whole process in general, thinking about it, what questions they have for you.
100%. The other thing I would add to that is make sure that they are added to your database. And I think that's what this class is trying to get at after. It wasn't, that's a very interesting question, because it's a very open-ended, but if you have those conversations, do yourselves a huge favor and make sure that they are in your database. If you were a part of Team Huddle, and it's okay if you weren't, Laura Jalot talked about the way that she organizes her database with her team. And every time anybody on their team has a conversation with somebody, they immediately put that contact card into opportunities. And were you there? Yeah. Were you there, Rena? Yeah, you were. Cool, great, love that, awesome. and that could be a good way for you to practice that. You have that two-way conversation perfect during the cultivate phase, and I'm gonna make sure that they're on the 19 to connect, or I'm sorry, they should, that came from the 19 to connect. I'm gonna make sure that they're on a smart plan to make sure that I'm keeping top of mind with them, you know? So thinking about that, I showed this slide last time when I was teaching. So when that two-way communication is established, that lead then becomes a contact in your database, and you move that person from 19 to connect, because they're not a lead anymore, to 36 to convert. This is the whole possible, profitable, probable, like whatever. You really want to cement that relationship. So like this graphic shows, the lead generation portion, the relationship management, and then the client referral loop. Once you have lead captured into your database, and then you have the 19 to connect, they're forming that relationship, and then they become a contact because you have a two-way conversation. What do you want to do? You want to strengthen that relationship. And that looks different for each person, but that's something to think about, is how can I strengthen that existing relationship? What can I do to be able to move the needle from possible business to profitable business? And how can I cement that relationship? Keep stabbing the TV. Okay. So the purpose of 19 to connect is to get them to become a contact, which you achieve, which is great. Connecting with that lead doesn't necessarily mean they will do business with you in that moment, or that the relationship that you have, like I've kind of mentioned, is as strong as you could be, or is as strong as it could be. That's why you need to continue with another touch campaign that's more focused on building that relationship to convert into business. So that's where the one to cement kind of conversation comes into play. A high value touch that solidifies the relationship you've just established and opens the door for future interactions. What might be a high value touch? Or do you guys have an example of a high value touch that you've given that's allowed for conversion to business. A couple of examples. To be more specific, having this high value touch should offer a strong first impression and sets the tone for your relationship together. An example should include tell them about the service you provide. Help set up a conversation for later. Serve as, hold on, let me read this. It does not make sense. Hold on. Okay. The cement touch is a high value touch that offers a strong first impression and sets the tone for your relationship together. Whatever you choose here should serve more than one purpose. This touch should tell them about the service you provide. There you go. Help set up a conversation for later, serve as a reminder of the interaction, and tell them how to refer business to you. So those 4 aspects need to be in this one touch to be able to cement that. And ironically, I do not have an example. So I'm going to ask that question again. What do you think, given all of those aspects to this high value touch, what do you think would be a good high value touch? Raina, do you have any personal examples?
Are you asking for a high value touch?
Yeah, like what would be an example for that?
Well, sitting down and having maybe over lunch or over coffee, having a small like buyer consultation or seller consultation. One of the things that I found that, again, I'm in this book, so you're going to get a lot of stuff from this book. But
I love it.
one of the things that they talked about is going back through and giving your previous clients like a 1-year evaluation of their real estate holdings. So like giving them kind of what's going on with the market, and this is kind of where your house has gone from where you bought it to where you are now, and then giving them refinancing options as well with maybe a lender. And it's not a sales pitch, it's just a, hey, this is where your house value is, with a personal sit down going over that.
I really like that.
Me
I
too.
actually personally haven't seen that. Not saying that no one does that, but I just personally haven't seen that. And that would be something I would enjoy, honestly, a little bit more, because my husband and I, we purchased our house in Willamette. 2.5 years ago.
They're selling for like double what they were originally
100%.
selling for.
Yeah.
For sale.
Yeah. Yeah. Legit. I know.
Really good story.
I know. We don't really want to move. But yes. I mean, well, when we purchased our house, like, I mean, it would be a really bad market here if we sold it for less than we purchased it.
I don't even know if that's possible.
I don't even know either. But yeah, so when we purchased our house 2 years ago, like we get a quarterly email about the value of our houses, which is, kind of fun and dandy. Like that's kind of nice. It's actually from
The builder.
not the builder, actually, ironically. It's from what is Bay Equity from? They're not title either. I don't know. We had to go through them. But I guess anyways, regardless, I love that, because I would find so much more value in those conversations for me to understand where my house is at. Like I can kind of gather that information and I can kind of see what they're showing me, but I love just that intentional sit down, let's have a conversation. And not only is that like a high value touch post, closed deal, but you're still keeping
Right.
up with that relationship and having those conversations and still being intentional with where they're at in their lives. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to be in front of them so that when somebody makes a comment about buying or selling, they refer you. So there's all like a cascading effect.
yeah.
It's like I said, good book.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of should read it just to see what it
Yeah.
has.
It's kind of amazing. Yeah.
That's really cool. One call out that I really like that you said, Rena, buyer and seller conversations. That's 100% going to be your high value touch. And the reason is like, you're going to do everything that I mentioned in my little list is tell them about the service you provide. You're going to have those conversations in those prior seller conversations. You're going to hopefully like set up a conversation. You would post that, like if you hit a home run in that conversation with your buyer and seller consultations, more than likely you're going to have a conversation for later. And that's something you can follow up within that conversation as well. And then you can tell them how to refer business to you in those consultations as well. So having your 19 to connect to keeping those leads. And then once that two-way conversation happens, you immediately follow up with have a conversation. So I can show you what we have as a seller packet versus buyer packet. That's something that the team that I was on prior to this role, I maybe it's just a little biased in me, but because I really appreciated that team that I was on. We really spent a lot of time cementing, if you will, like how can we give these conversations values, like what can we do to bring value to these conversations? How can we show them that the sale of their home was the highest priority to us? I mean, we spent time and money ultimately to make sure that whoever was listing with us knew that they were going to get the best quality photos. They were going to get the consistent communication throughout the entire transaction. They were going to get follow-up with me and our transaction coordinator. I was the assistant at the time, the executive assistant. I just helped on the back end a lot, but to really you got the whole team supporting the one agent in that conversation with the seller. And that's something that we took a lot of intentionality with, because we wanted to make sure that the seller knew it wasn't just their agent. It was the whole team that was helping them get to the sale of their home or get to the point of wanting to purchase and what that looked like. So super cool. Yay, feedback. Okay. What are some ahas? Because this is pretty much it. If you do not have anything, that is okay, because Mackenzie also went to the bathroom. So, all right. I don't have anything else, but I really appreciate you guys coming out to learn what it looks like to have effective and consistent lead follow-up. And Ignite continues on Friday. So I'm gonna stop sharing and probably end my stuff. But Rena, I hope you have a good rest of your day. And if you don't have anything else, we'll chat later.
I'm good. Have a good one. I'll be in later.
Oh, sounds good. Cool. Bye.